All right, so this next recipe is sloppy barbecue jackfruit sliders. So grab a roll of paper towels and dive in. Some spicy barbecue sauce, creamy sriracha mayo. So grab a roll of paper towels and dive in. This spicy barbecue sauce, creamy sriracha mayo, and crunchy slaw with some sour pickles. So freaking good. And the jackfruit, if you haven't tried it yet, get ready for one of the most coolest, satisfying plant-based foods out there. It falls apart in shreds similar to how a pulled pork would in a sauce. All right, so we're gonna start off with some jackfruit, okay? Jackfruit is typically a large fruit. It's a massive fruit. It's where the flavor for juicy fruit gum comes from, is from jackfruit. So when it's ripe, it tastes just like juicy fruit gum, actually, which is pretty crazy. But when it's unripe, they tend to be pretty small when they're unripe, and they're green. You can use them like you would a plant-based meat, okay? So like I had mentioned, these have like a shredded pork sort of texture once it starts cooking down. It's amazing. It's such a cool little ingredient to work with, okay? So you can find them at a lot of Asian markets. A lot of health food shops have them as well. There's a lot of different companies carrying them out there in cans and also in pouches. When you are choosing them, when you're choosing jackfruit, I tend to like the green jackfruit that is, you know, found at a health food shop or a specialty shop opposed to Asian markets. Because as you see with this one, there is not a lot of seeds. In the Asian market canned product, you'll find a lot of seeds in the product, okay? Which you'll then have to kind of sift through a little bit. These are younger seeds, which are fine because they'll cook down, okay? In some cheaper sort of product on the market, you'll have to pick through and pull out the seeds before you start working with it. This looks really good. So what I'm gonna start with is I'm gonna kind of separate these, mash it up a little bit, but we're gonna also do that as it cooks. So let's break this apart a little bit. And it's soft enough to actually break apart. You also want to make sure that if you are using one that you're getting from the Asian market, that it has little to few ingredients, okay? There's so many, a lot of them add citric acid and other sort of ingredients for pH, but they're gonna come out very acidic. So you wanna make sure that you rinse them really, really well before you use them. All right, so we're just gonna crush that up. See if we get any hard pieces. That's a firm piece that I'm not going to use, so I'll take that out. See if there's any more of those. There's another one. But the rest of this looks really good to work with. So I'm just basically gently breaking it apart before I use it. So I'm going to set this aside. Jackfruit is great when you actually braise it really for a period of time. And braising with a flavorful liquid is going to reduce that liquid, and it's going to really make this jackfruit very delicate and sort of succulent, okay? When you add it to tacos or any kind of sliders. So we're going to go ahead and turn on the heat here in this pot. Medium heat. Let's start prepping up some garlic and onion. So I'm basically going to pan fry the jackfruit a little bit, give it a little bit of color. Okay, get a little caramelization from the onion and garlic. Items, I'm going to crush that garlic. Easy way to mince, just crush it first. All right, so whenever I'm cooking onions and garlic, I usually cook the onions first because it takes a little bit longer to caramelize, and garlic cooks very quickly. So I don't want to burn the garlic, so I add it a little bit after the onions are caramelized. Add some olive oil to the pan. Add some onions in here. Let's get some color on these. I have 3 liquids that I'm going to add to this, okay? 3 components to the sauce, right? I have any kind of store-bought barbecue sauce or homemade barbecue sauce if you prefer. I have some that we made earlier. I have a sriracha or any kind of hot sauce if you like it spicy, and then also a little bit of vegetable stock, okay? So make sure those onions have a little bit of color, okay? All right, you can see that they start to turn a little translucent. I'm gonna go ahead and add the garlic now. That's a good time to add garlic. All right, before it gets too much color, I want the jackfruit to get some color as well. So just like I mentioned earlier, we're gonna let that sit for a little while so it gets some color before I stir it. Okay, you can see that it's starting to stick now. That's a good sign, good indication there. I'm gonna scrape that bottom, make sure it's not burning. That's a good indication. Once you start seeing a little bit of color on the bottom of the pan and it's starting to stick, now we're gonna start adding the liquids and give it a slow braise. I'm gonna start off with that barbecue sauce of your choice. Now depending on your heat level, I like it a little spicy, so I'm gonna add some sriracha in there. Any barbecue sauce that you prefer works really well in this recipe. All right, I'm gonna add just a touch of vegetable stock. And that's really just to dilute the sauce because I want this jackfruit to cook a little bit longer than if you were to just add a thick barbecue sauce to it. Okay, so I'm just diluting the sauce so it will reduce down. And just keep in mind, the higher the sugar content is for any sauce that you're adding, the faster it's gonna reduce down. So barbecue sauce typically is pretty high in sugar in general. So because that will reduce so quickly, I add a little bit of vegetable stock to dilute it because I wanted to cook down for a little bit longer. Okay, I'm gonna reduce that down to a low medium and let it simmer. Let's make a couple of these components for these sliders. All right, so I have some spicy dill pickles. I'm just gonna slice those very, very thin. I love adding pickles to anything that has to do with barbecue. It just works so well with the sweetness of the barbecue sauce and that really sharpness of pickles. I have some vegan mayo here with some sriracha, depending on your heat level. If you don't like it spicy and you're using a mild barbecue sauce, you can just hit it with a little bit of ketchup instead of sriracha. I like it spicy, and this is gonna add to the sloppiness of these little sloppy barbecue sliders. Next, let's add some cabbage here. I'm gonna get some fine shreds here. This is gonna be the nice crunchy addition to these sliders. You can make a slaw if you wish, but I just like using raw cabbage with these. All right, looks like these are ready to be assembled. Let's check on that jackfruit. All right, it's smelling so good, so good. Just gonna make sure it's not sticking. That's nice. It's reducing nicely. This will probably go for a good 8 to 10 more minutes. It's important when you're making this recipe that you check on it frequently though. Don't just walk away from the stove. Because again, the high sugar in that barbecue sauce has a tendency to stick if it reduces too quickly. Just gonna leave the lid off here. So when it comes to sliders, any slider buns work. I'm just gonna go ahead and put these in the oven so they crisp up a little bit on the outside so they're soft on the inside. All right, so let's check on that jackfruit, see how it's reducing. That's looking nice. So let's start assembling. By the time all the other components are on, this sloppy mixture is gonna be ready. Let's grab some of that sriracha mayo, putting that on top. All right, so this looks good. This is reduced nicely. Don't want it to get too thick. Yum. Smells so freaking good. These look delicious. Let's top that off with some pickles. A little bit of slaw, cabbage on here. There's no holding back, you know? Just, these are far from little dainty canapes. Let's add a little bit of cilantro to each. Leave it off if you wish, but it's so nice with a little bit of cilantro on there. There you go, some sloppy barbecue jackfruit sliders. All right, the next recipe we're gonna make is sloppy barbecue jackfruit sliders. There you go, some sloppy barbecue. There you go, some sloppy